Hello and welcome to the Soul Sync podcast. I'm Jason Paul. Thanks for stopping by. If you're returning, a big welcome to you. And if you're new to the Soul Sync, firstly, welcome. This podcast is all for people that have perhaps asked questions like, there has to be more to life than this, right? It's for the seekers, the sensitives, the deep thinkers, and people who are quietly, just a bit curious. Perhaps you're in the spiritual closet, we might say. It's for the ones who feel energy, perhaps before they see it. And you might have had just too many coincidences to still call them coincidences. I know that's how it all started for me. And most importantly, it's for people who love a good, soulful and raw conversation. That's what we do here on the Soul Sync. So I'm recording this episode for you the night before my dad's funeral. And you probably think, why the bloody hell am I recording this now? Well, as soon as I come off, as my dad's funeral concludes tomorrow, I'm then going straight onto a course on all things mediumship. So I'm throwing myself into that with the spirit world, which is just such a timely time for me to be going. I'm not going to lie to you and say I'm not holding out hope that my dad will come through. I really, really hope he does. But, I think there's going to be so much more to that week that's really going to help me at this time, especially with what I've been going through with my business and all things like that. So by the time you listen to this, I'll be on that course and I'll be sure to report back to you what happens with me and the spirit world as I unfold my mediumship. So I wanted to put out this conversation for you. It's a really beautiful one, firstly. It's with a medium called Penny Francis, and she's also a teacher as well. And we have a pretty raw and inspiring conversation about how she became spirit-led. So she went into detail about her childhood bond that she has with an invisible friend, and it's actually a guide that never even left her, and a big long void that she had from then the spirit world and how it all kind of just blew up after that. And it was really honest, raw conversation, and that's what I love so much about Penny. She's also got a really fun sense of humour, so that was really interesting. So we also digged into spiritualising the self and why sensitivity often increases on the mediumship journey and how to stop overthinking. Oh my God, that's my problem. I just can't stop. As soon as I get a bit of evidence, it goes straight up into my head like a default mode. But of course it does, because in our day-to-day lives, what do? As soon as we get anything, we go straight into our minds. So, you're trying to untrain yourself in the bloody habit of a lifetime. So Penny also offers us grounded practices and lots of different interesting information, which I think you're just going to find remarkable. So anyway, let me let you get on with it. This is my conversation called Stop Thinking, Start Blending with Penny Francis on Real Mediumship. Enjoy. So, Penny, firstly, a massive warm welcome onto the Soul Sync podcast.
Thank you very much. It's exciting. I've been looking forward to it for some time now, but particularly today.
Well, I've been looking very forward to it too, I must say. So, obviously, you haven't heard the intro because I haven't drafted it yet, but I've been so excited to talk to you because on this show, people know now that I'm trying to develop my mediumship. So, I think we're going to have a really great conversation. But to get going, tell us about you. Let's go right back in time to how this even came about for you. How did you even, I guess, tell us about your childhood. How did you even discover that, this might be a calling for you?
Yeah. I think, like a lot of mediums, that I think as children, we're all very aware. We're very sort of open. We have had nothing to brainwash us, like a bit like school, which is a bit controversial. I shouldn't really say that. I worked in a high school for 10 years, but sometimes we become so bogged with media, TV, phones, that we lose that naturalness of who we are. And as children, we're so very natural. There's a real organic aspect to being a kid. And I was very attuned to the spirit world. And I was very blessed to be able to feel spirit like they're real people, like they were 3D. And now when I look back, I often wonder now, was I more in their world or were they more in my world? To have that aspect take place. So it was always quite evident. And I'd had spirit people around me right up until the age of 9, which is quite a long time, really. But I had what my family would call an invisible friend. And my invisible friend would come and see me every night. And I grew very fond of him, and the dialogue, I can't even describe what the dialogue might have been because I don't have a memory recall of that. But what I do remember is that he had a big impact in my life. He was so very present. But he started to lock himself in the coal shed, and he was shouting in the middle of the night, and I was waking up, and I was having to get my dad up in the middle of the night and get him out the coal shed. Let matey out, let matey out. And when your father's up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning and he's got a full day of work ahead of him, he don't really want that. And he said, you've got to tell him to go away. And actually that night he never appeared again. So there was this real devastating feeling of loneliness, like I cannot even express to you. Like, it was such a loss, so that I can't even comprehend, but I can still recall that sort of initial feeling. And I didn't forget about it, but I knew that it was present in my life. But I went through school very isolated, in a very solitude format. And pretty much most of my life, relationships didn't work out. And it was just, that you have this feeling and this sense that there's something else, but you can't put a finger on it. And I don't think my story is any different really from a lot of others. However, fast forward, I actually went to the Arthur Findlay College, and there was a medium demonstrating. I was 40 years old by this time, and I just broke up from a relationship, and things were really raw, but I knew that this is where I needed to be. I knew this was where the pull was. And she gave me a message from platform in the sanctuary from my grandfather, and it was smashing. It absolutely on the money. Literally, it was about money. About after 35 years after his death, his property had come up for sale. So like, he was talking about that, which was so intriguing. And she said, "Oh, just before your grandfather goes, he just wants to say, matey says hello." And I absolutely burst into tears. And the medium came to find me afterwards, and she said to me, "Matey's never left you. He's always been with you." And then I realised that he was one of the main instigators in my spirit team. I feel him occasionally. I don't see him very often, but from that moment, that sentence, those words just changed my life, because that filled the void that I no longer felt, like that gap that was missing, that something was missing. And I felt really quite complete and whole again. And that's where the journey started.
It's interesting, isn't it, that you kind of felt that void for such a long time. Did you sort of place that void on the feeling of the loss of him, or was it just a general feeling of emptiness?
It was the loss of something. I was I had a great home, in a happy relationship at that time, 2 great kids, but there was still something missing, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And now I realise, through the evolution of self, through myself, through spiritualising, through understanding who I am, that actually there's this great reverence that has appeared within. And I never thought in a million years that I would ever use the word God. I used to feel embarrassed about it years ago to even mention the word God. But there was no denying that this feeling that I had inside of me was a reverence and a connection to God. And it was just so huge. And it plays such an important part of my life. And you can take away all of my qualifications, my certificates, my ability, but the one thing that you'll never take away and diminish is that feeling, that soul, that reverence within, that cannot be destroyed.
It's interesting what you say, because I only recently probably have started to accept the word God. I think my feelings towards it, because I've never been comfortable. I've always said, no, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything, for a long time. And I think part of it for me was growing up, well, being gay, and always, the church and religion and their thoughts between it. I'd had a massive blockage towards that word. So I could definitely relate to you there. So you're 40 years old. You go to the Arthur Findlay College. You feel that there's a homecoming. Where did you go from there? Was it and how, when you started kind of, right, I'm going to explore this, what did your development look like? Tell us how your journey.
Well, it was very sporadic. So obviously I was single parent with 2 children at that point, and so I knew that the journey was going to be like quite tenuous, if I can use that word. But there was something. My first tutor was Helen DeVita, and just an incredible, very down to earth, very anchored woman, and with such a mountain and a fountain of knowledge. She's just an incredible woman, and she lit a spark within me. And I think for the first time in my life, I'd been seen. I'd been seen, and she saw me, and I had been craving for that all of my life. All of those times where there was that void, that emptiness, she saw me. And I think when she saw me, it lit up. I just changed, and I met the most incredible people and friends, people that I'm still friends with now. And I met my best friend halfway through that first week, and we've been, she is my sounding board. It's her birthday today anyway. So yeah, like she is an incredible medium, and at the moment not using it, but I have to say that she is the one support in my life that I will never be without, totally, to the very end. She's just solid. So my journey, where did it take me? Well, actually, believe it or not, the first time I went for a week at the Offa Finley College, I sat next to a lady at the dinner table, because you have to sit on the same and I get that. It was lovely. We had a great crowd. Well, it was like there was a Norwegian people, there was Swedish people, Australian. I was like, this is wonderful, because I love culture and I love, listening to other people's stories. And by midweek, she turned to me, the lady from Norway. She said, "Would you like to come and serve our church out in Norway?" And I went, "Me?" She said, "You." And I said, "That'd be fantastic." And she said, "Yeah, you can come out and you can teach, you can run workshops." And I was like, I literally, I'm only just developing at this stage. She said, "You can do it." And so actually I went out there for 3 or 4 years on the trot, doing a church, doing readings. And it was almost like this magic happened. And I was doing quite a bit of overseas work before I'd even established myself as a medium in the UK. So it was something that, yeah, somebody else had seen something within me that I'd not recognised myself. But it literally brought so much forward. And then the next time I went to the college, I enrolled on my SD1 course, because I wanted to know more. And I wanted to be part of this wonderful religion that I realised that there was. And what intrigued me about it is that it was a science also. And
Yes.
I love science. Yeah. So I philosophy and a religion. So I absolutely thought, this is where I belong. And I did. I literally came home. I literally came home. And
It's so funny to hear you say that, because that's how I felt. And do you know the funny thing about it is, when I went the first time, I went not really knowing anything about anything. I didn't know my tutors were. I just turned up. I don't know why. I just felt a need to go there. And then because I hadn't, at that point, I just didn't care. I was like, oh, I'll get up. I don't care. I'll do it. I've got nothing to lose. I had a lot of people come up to me that week say, "Jason, you can really do this." Da, 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 da. And then I left the college and my confidence took an almighty walloping, because I thought, no, I can't do any of this. And it's funny, that first ever time, it just came to me so easily. So what an incredible story that you started going straight away abroad.
No. And I'd been to the States, I'd been to Norway, I'd been to Ireland, and I'd been to Europe as well. And I just thought, this is an incredible opportunity. And I thought, what do they see in me? I was like, because I don't feel that I'm all that, I was always not putting myself down, but actually trying to get a better gauge and a perspective on myself. And that's where, I realised and understood that there was so much more to it than actually teaching and helping people, supporting people. I got the bug, but
Mm.
there was something within me that I needed to identify with before I was able to help and support another, whether that be in a teaching, a demonstration, or a one-to-one sitting. There was a part of me that realized, yeah, there's more to this than anything. And I kind of became my own psychologist in a
Yeah.
strange sort of sense. I started to analyze and not pick at, but critique and look very closely at the dynamics, the dimensions within me, if you can call it dimensions, probably layers, but also
Hmm.
of how my own energy worked, how other people responded to me. I started to look really, really closely at how energy is so integrated in our lives, like beyond even comprehension. I think we've still only scratched the surface.
It's really interesting you say that because we're going to keep finding this as we go along this conversation. I think that's what people are going to love about this. I have found, so since I went to the college in September, I have found myself that I have never ever analysed myself. Even all what I would perceive to be my negative traits, it's put a bloody spotlight on them, Penny. Why is mediumship such a mirror? Why does it do that?
Because what it does, I don't know whether notice, but I know that when I'm going through, say, like periods back in the day when I was feeling really quite lonely, if I was demonstrating or working in circle in a safe environment, I would find I was giving messages that actually related to me. And I think that was the trigger. And I think because vibrationally, when we're demonstrating, we probably will attract, let's say, lonely people that understand our story. What greater way for the spirit world to work with somebody that already understands and knows how to work with loneliness and understands how to cope with it. So I am probably best first at that time, but there was the spirit communicator is also best first because they've experienced it, and so we've got this connection. So it's an energetic alignment, I believe, that the spirit will said, look, you can use Penny because she understands this process and it's already familiar in her mind. And so when we're giving that message and that evidence and that story, and it's relating and connecting to the sitter, or the person in the congregation or audience, then we're actually feeding ourselves and helping to heal ourselves. And
Oh.
once we start to look at that, then we start to unfold our own aspect of self, the spiritualization of self. Because I truly believe that we're born to this earth to spiritualize. And I think that's a lot of what people don't understand. And it's not about mediumship and it's not about religion. It's not about anything like that. It's just unfortunate that I'm doing the work that I feel blessed to be doing. And I feel it's the work that one of the purposes that I was meant to be doing in this lifetime. So I'm fulfilling that. But do I feel like I'm spiritualizing without that? Yeah, I do. Because I allow the spirit world to be part of my day-to-day life. Like, when I'm working at the hospital or when I was working at a high school, I let them in because they can help. And
How do you let them in? What?
well, not consciously like, come on, guys, we've got a job to do. We need to heal this. It's not like, but you see, one of the things that I didn't quite understand is that when I was working, I have a very medical mind, but when I'm working in the medical profession, where with the spirit world, they weren't around. I was like, it's like you have to don't keep us separate, allow us to be integrated into your work. And you know what? When I allowed them to do that, and I didn't sit in the power on night shift and say, with me, but what happened, because I allowed them to be part of it, that I got indication and nudges when people were about to pass, so I could call families so they could be with their family just in time. I learned something really quite marvelous. Like one of the side rooms, it was like I could see the light on, and I thought, I've just been in. I'm sure I've switched the light off, and I'm sure like he wouldn't have done that himself because this was a terminally ill patient. So when I went in, it was like the room was lit up, and I realized that actually this was the illumination. Like this was the part of the physical body that was dying. And I knew that I needed to call the family. So that's what I did. But also what I observed, and this is to me probably the most incredible thing that's ever happened, is that I saw the outline of the patient's body just above its body. And I could see
Wow.
it had this golden thread around it, and I could see it connecting. Just it was like a cloud, and it was like connecting up to the spirit world. And I can't explain it other than that, but that's what caused it to illuminate. And I thought
Wow.
it's amazing, but I couldn't go out and say, "Oh, guess what, guys? Guess what I've just seen." Anyway, the family came in time, and I felt like it was a real blessing. It was really beautiful. And fast forward 10 years, okay, and I'm at the college last year, the Arthur Findlay College, and I'm being observed for the day. And we were given extra duties to do on the Friday, and I was asked to do the outer layer, the spiritual layer of the auric field as a tutor, as the lecture. And I was like, what do I do? What do I bring
It's a
forward?
really hard thing to teach. When I'm at the college,
Yeah.
I think mediumship is a bloody hard thing to teach because, in theory, you're using a lot of analogies and, different people have light bulbs of different things. And I don't think it's an easy subject to teach. I think it's very hard to teach.
I don't think you can teach it. I think that
Well,
it's
yeah,
al-
that's
it's already within, but I think you can facilitate the learning and help to progress and bring forward different dynamic than perhaps they'd not seen before. But if I can just go back to that
yes,
outer.
please do the auric fields.
So I sat there at like 11 o'clock at night, and we were sweating because it was like it was the hottest week of the year. It was like 45 degrees. It was roasting. And I had a little sliver of a window like this. And I started to do some research, and I'd got Andrew Jackson Davis's book with the magic stuff, and I was looking through referencing, and I thought, is there anything here? Because this man was just incredible. Like his medical mind was, even to this modern day, was second to none. You know, one of the greatest pioneers, and somebody that really understood what spiritualism is. And I read that he had written about how the body dies from the feet and the hands first, and that the auric field mirrors the imprint of the physical body and starts to rise as the person's taking their last breath, and actually creates an illumination. And it's this illumination, the outer layer of the auric field, that is connected to the base of the brain, the medulla oblongata, where billions of sort of like neurons and nerve endings are, and that's the last part that's to be severed, is the last part that gets detached as the brain dies, but it transports the soul to the spirit world. The outer layer of the auric field transports the soul to the spirit world. And that was 10 years apart. I had seen that at the hospital, and then I'd read about it from a man that was writing in the 1800s. I already knew. And so this then just absolutely encapsulated everything. And I realized, wow, I was seeing what he wrote about, and yet I didn't know the two. And yet 10 years later, when given that task by Jackie White, this is what we want you to do. And I just felt blessed. And I shared that as part of my lecture, and I felt so very blessed, like, no, the spirit world were really, really connecting. So that's the magic in it for me.
It is the magic.
Yeah, the God force. So I don't have huge phenomena happen to me at all, but those things that join up like that are just incredible.
Do you know, when you say about your experience, I love the sound of the passion in your voice about this. I've got so many questions naturally, which I'm going to come on to. So I just want to, because energy, you mentioned a couple of things. You said about spiritualizing. What does that mean to you? Well, people are going to be listening to this thinking, well, what does it mean to spiritualize? How do I get there? Because obviously you said I do believe it, what you're saying. I believe that everyone is on this path to get to that place. But what does it mean to you?
For me, it means getting rid of all that toxicity, like within me, because we're born out of love. We're born to love. Whether whoever you choose to love is entirely up to you, but I believe we were just born to love. But we adopt these other aspects like anger and pain and, distaste and discord and all these, what I would call negative emotions. And I have to say that I haven't always been the vibrancy and nice sort of like individual. I could be the wrath of Khan if I wanted to, you know. I was so angry. I had a chip on my shoulder in my early 20s. I felt entitled. And when I look back now, I think, what on earth has happened? And I truly believe that when somebody challenged me about my attitude and my unfortunate manner, that really upset me because I actually thought I was a nice person. So I took about it to start to change the patterns of behavior and start to adopt different things, different ways of looking at myself, different days of working and observing other people. And I was like, gosh, I wish I was like them. They're so nice, so kind, and everybody likes them. And I think that's what it was. There was this void, this emptiness, and this loneliness, and not being seen, not being heard. 6'1" and nobody sees me. What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it was that kind of thing. So for me, it was spiritualizing is about understanding yourself, dealing with your own issues. I'm not going to call them demons because, there's never that, but I've understood that what you see is what you get with me. I feel I am the most authentic I can be at this moment in time. There are no airs and graces. It is what it is. And that comes from place of unfoldment, of compassion, of love, of understanding and seeing, being the seeker and the searcher of your own life and being the seeker of your own truth, because we can only work from truth. And I often say when I'm teaching, I talk about myself a lot, but I can only work from my experience. I've never had a mentor. I've not had that support where I've had somebody to lean on, but I've had best mates and I've had good friends. But what it's allowed to do, because I love to talk. I will stand in a queue and talk, and I will turn to somebody and have a conversation, whether they speak my language or not. I will try and exchange, have some dialogue, use sign language or, not in a professional sense, but try and engage in conversation because I have a love of people. I am truly passionate about people.
I was just thinking, it was going through my head when you were talking, I was thinking to myself, do I think I'm at that place now? And I think, well, yeah, I am. I do have self-compassion. I do have a tendency. And God, when I was in my 20s, I self-sabotaged. I still think I'm only ever a moment away from the fuck it button. But there we go. So I want to come on then to the spirit world because, as I said, there's a lot of people that listen to this show that are mediums that are developing, myself included. So I'll go from my experience and talk about where I feel I'm up to, because I think that's going to prompt some really good conversation here. So I can feel spirit around me. I understand sitting in the power, and I can do that now. Bloody hell, it took me a long time to understand what sitting in the power was. And I could do a reading, but it's, a bit patchy. My problem is my mind gets in the way a lot. So how does one have a fluid conversation with a spirit person, or get, so because when I think you stand on a platform and do this for a very long time,
Mm.
you know, how do you keep that connection for such a long time? And also trying to keep the audience's attention. I've asked you about 5 questions in one there.
That's right. Yeah, I'll try and get to it. And I was just thinking a minute ago, I'm not sure that I actually, those questions you've asked me, I'm not sure I even answered them. So, like, you'll love your viewers say, she never answered that question and she never answered that
Oh,
one. She's skirting
no, I
around.
have a habit of asking 5 questions and then going off down 10 other rabbit holes. So don't worry about that.
So, which part do you want me to answer first? Like, how do you hold the power?
Let's start at the beginning. So we need to get in the zone to talk to the spirit person,
Okay.
or to feel them.
What I have a tendency to do, and what I have, spirit have helped me with, is building a relationship with spirit, and is sitting. It's literally all I do is sit. Sometimes I expand my power to the room, other times I just sit. And just recently, what spirit have taught me is to look at each layer, the physical, mental, and emotional, separately. So quite often when we look at ourselves holistically, don't we? And we just think, oh, a few aches and pains and, oh, full of mind chatter. You talk about self-sabotage. You got to look at that internal dialogue. All right. So they taught me to, okay, let's sit together. Now focus on your physical body. Whereabouts are you feeling those ailments? Whereabouts are those aspects of you? And then I come out of that moment, and then I go back in and look at my internal dialogue. What's my mental chatter about? Because for me, my mental ability creates the emotion, the feeling, and then I go and look at the feeling. So when I look at the 3 separate layers, I'm giving it identity, and I'm acknowledging those 3 aspects of myself separately. So you're fine tuning those 3 things separately. So when you're fine tuning that aspect of yourself separately, then the spirit world will have, I believe, greater clarity to work with, rather than looking at yourself holistically. And not only that, what you do, you are spiritualizing by doing that, because you're learning to understand your patterns of behavior, your internal dialogue. We can't always change that, because, if you're in a habit, if you're somebody that self-sabotages, to bring in positive mantra, that'll take me 55 years to bring in, the new me. It doesn't always work like that. And it could be that I think to myself, well, I need healing. So I just say to the spirit world, can I have some healing this morning? And I ask every night when I go to bed, because there's an unlimited supply. Okay. So that's the first thing to do. That's good spiritual practice. That's like spiritual hygiene to me. It is doing that. I mean, I don't profess to be the greatest medium in the world, and I doubt I'll ever be, and I wouldn't want to be if truth be known. But what's important for me is that if I understand myself in a good way, then I'm able to understand other people too. Okay.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. So I don't have any dialogue with the spirit world as such. I just ask them to come and blend, because it's in that blend that they can connect with you. And the more you connect and the more you sit with them, the greater relationship you'll have with them. So imagine doing that every day for 3 minutes. Just that connection. Spirit, come with me. Just blend with my power. Let me feel power. That's a big.
My problem is, do you know what you say? It makes. Do you know what? This is one thing that makes me laugh about mediumship, because it's sometimes what you're describing. Just sit. It's so basic. But I know what I do. I get a bit excited as soon as I feel spirit, and then I start bombarding them with questions and expectations, and then they're gone.
Yeah. No, just if you set the intention, because then what happens if you start having dialogue, you're coming out of that power anyway, because you're more in your mental mind. You're not actually, your awareness shifts. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
If you even just try just for a minute, like looking at the 3 layers, that's 3 minutes. What you're going to do in that 3 minutes is identify, oh yeah, I've acknowledged those three aspects of myself. It's gonna increase your sensitivity and it's going to increase your awareness. All right. The other way to do it is to go out and have a walk and look very, very closely at leaves, plants, seeds within plants, bugs on. And when you start looking at the very finite detail of nature, then you'll get finite detail within your mediumship. Because when you start to look very closely, then the spirit world will use the mind very closely. It's that simple. That's exactly how it works. There's nothing complicated about it.
Do you know the funny thing? I'm going to keep saying the funny thing. You're just making me come out with that tonight. I think because I've got a really overactive imagination, and I can definitely see that can be advantageous in my mediumship. But what I have never been is great at detail. But I'm starting to live a life that is much more present and much slower, and I'm starting to really observe. I just think to myself how much I've changed in 12 months. I don't even think I would notice the person I am now 12 months ago, because of I'm just so aware of everything. And I do find I am becoming a lot more sensitive, and at times I'm actually struggling with that, being more sensitive. I'm finding that I don't want to be in environments that I was previously once in. I get overwhelmed if I'm really sensitive to sound anyway. But now, if there's a sound I don't like, I have to run for the hills, Penny. Is that normal?
It is. Yeah, it is. And it's purely because your sensitivity is increasing. Like I have this today, no TV on and no radio and no music. I have quietness is what I need. I love
Yeah.
quiet. And what do you know, when you listen to the quietness, guess what you're doing? You're expanding your awareness.
Mm.
You're listening into something else. Do you know what also is really helpful is listening to binaural beats.
God, I'm so glad you said that. I have got into them so much. It's the one thing that's really allowed me to actually, because I was getting really frustrated with meditation. I tried and tried and tried. I just couldn't find the right way. And now there's not a day that goes by where I don't listen to them, Penny.
Well, that will actually amplify your clairaudience as well. Because when you're listening to that like binaural beat where it's like going either side, you're setting the intention where you're becoming supercharged with your hearing. And although like we don't necessarily hear with our physical ears, because then that would be like a physical phenomena, like the spirit, all of this will be fine tuning. But that binaural beats, like I listen to 40 beats per minute, and that is really slow and rhythmical, which is unusual for me. But what it does, it slows down the mind. And guess what? The connection to spirit is super better. So
Is it?
super better? It is actually right because the connection's so much stronger and I feel them so much stronger. I'm still in the learning phase. I don't know everything and I don't profess to know everything.
I don't think you ever do on this mediumship journey, do you? It doesn't seem like there's ever a end destination.
No, and I think it's really important to understand that. I did actually feel during the first lockdown where I was working a lot online, I was the happiest I've ever been. And I hit that euphoric sort of moment. And I was working all over the East Coast, South Coast, and West Coast of Australia. And it was fabulous. And I was working all through the night. I absolutely loved it. And it really made me feel really full. And I felt like I'd really come alive and like I'd arrived. And then the next day, it'd all gone. And I realised that I'd reached a crescendo of that phase of my life and it was about to all change again. And it did in quite a dramatic way. So you really got to take the bull by the horns. You really got to invest in yourself. I remember feeling incredibly sad one week I went to the college and my heart was really heavy. And I was never taught by Mavis Patilla at all. But she walked past me and she said to me, I don't know you and I don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to say to you, nothing is forever. This too shall pass. And those words just dissolved everything that I was feeling, and it gave me hope. And I have never forgotten that. Never forgotten that. That simple sentence, and I use it now to myself and to students and anybody else, like nothing is forever. This too shall pass. Even the good stuff, she said as well. But she followed it up by even the good stuff. And she's so right, because that euphoric moment lasted for 2 days and then it went. And it's like I've been striving to get back to that euphoria ever since.
It's so true what you said. It's you know, I at times I have found this mediumship journey I just can't stop coming back to it. But at times I've gone, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But it's a pulling of the soul. I just can't stop wanting to do, because it is all aspects of you. It really does. And I don't even know how to describe it really, but it's a pulling within my soul to just keep coming back to it. And it's bizarre. I can't explain it.
I think what it does, it creates tremendous growth.
Yeah.
And that in itself, I don't know about you, but creates an excitement within me. But we outgrow relationships quite quickly if they're not on a similar journey. And I think that's possibly why, I mean, I have been single now for about 14 years. And I think it's because it's hard for some individuals to understand, to accept, and it's hard to get your head around. But we live a very sort of different and very diverse life. And it's like, you know, some people can't grasp that I can't see it, so I can't believe it, you know.
It's such a 4D kind of life. It's, you know, I find myself, you know, I want to be in quietness a lot. I get very overwhelmed. Do you know what? I actually found out that my life tarot card the other day, and I was a bit upset when I first got it, was the Hermit. And I thought, oh, I don't want to be the Hermit. Then I thought to myself, well, actually, I am the Hermit, really. But it's the same with me in relationships. I've kind of really been single for 8 years now, and I've always been an old soul anyway. You know, I've had an old head on my shoulders since a very young age. But I too have come to the conclusion that, I already feel like I'm fishing from a small pond anyway, Penny being gay, but I feel like it's like the size of a tiny little pond. It's very hard because you need someone, the development that you're doing and the growth you're going through, so many people aren't at that stage of evolution. Do you think mediums can only go out with other mediums or healers? No.
So let's put it into context. All right. So that's what I say to clients. Because I get a lot of calls like, you know, can you tell me if I'm going to meet the one? And I say, look, you know, you have to understand where you are in your life at the moment. Like, I know that just knowing myself, I'm a strong, independent woman. I'm 6'1", and like most guys would go, oh my God, it's like parting of the Red Sea, get out of the way. But I've tried, yeah, but it is, and especially when you wear heels as well, you know, it's like, whoa, who's she? You know, but it's like I have a strong presence and I'm aware of that. And I remember once a guy saying to me, you know, you're very intimidating. And I said to him, no, you're intimidated. I said, I'm not intimidating. I said, there's a difference. So I said to him, I said, you actually go and, you know, work on yourself a little bit. I said, because, and this is where the theory, because I gave that a lot of thought. I have one presence and I'm very aware of that, and I'm not going to change that for nobody.
Oh, no.
But, and that probably sounds a bit sanctimonious, but the one thing that I really think about most is that this is a world of 7.5 billion people. It takes 37 years to count to 1 billion. Are you telling me that there's one person that is aligned to you out of all of those people in this world, nah. There are millions of people that are spiritually aligned to you at any one given moment. Anyone given. There are millions out there. Actually, what I love about this world is that people are feel free enough to share that, they're no longer heterosexual, they're bisexual, or they're lesbian. It makes no difference. We were born to love, so people are making the right choices. They're seeing themselves differently, and I love that. So that means that you're going to have more choice.
It does. Do you know my problem is as an empath, I can't stand internet dating and chatting over message and whatever. It does nothing for me at all. I'm the old-fashioned go to a nightclub, or I say nightclub, probably that's not me, but go and actually feel the chemistry and the energy of someone. The modern dating scene does absolutely nothing for me, Penny. I don't know how we've got onto my love life, to be honest with you, but it's a relevant topic.
It is, but I absolutely agree with you. I have tried it, and it's just not for me. There are I don't want to be somebody's mother or carer. And that's what I found out that it was. But I've met some good people through there as well, and still friends with some people. So it has its pros and cons, but it's not for me either. And I truly believe that once you stop looking, and once you no, it's not about stopping looking. Let's erase that. We'll probably have to cut that bit. It's about once we realize within ourselves that the need is fulfilled through the purposes of our life and through spiritualizing, then if I said to my dad the other day, if it meant that I am on my own for the rest of my life, that's okay, because that doesn't bother me, and because I've overcome so many different forms of being on my own and being lonely, that it is no longer an issue. And the work that I do, whether this be as a medium, as a nurse, as a teacher, it fulfills my passion for people.
I'm the same. I think I've got to that point now where I just do love my own company. I've even said to myself, could I actually live with a partner now? Because I'm so comfortable with my own space. I've sort of I said to my friend the other day, I said, if I was going to be with someone, I could almost just see having my own place, having the marital home, but still coming back to I don't know how that would actually work in practice, but that's what went through my mind. So
distance relationship.
Yeah, quite potentially. So I want to come on in the last bit of time that we've got together to talk about, and because I know that lots of people have asked me about this topic, and it's something that I've got a lot of emails about. How do you strengthen your evidence when it comes to, because, when it comes to a spirit person? So when I am doing a reading, I'm getting drips and drabs of information. Sometimes I don't even know, I'll get something in my mind, but I won't know how to interpret that or what that means. And then I'll say it to the sitter, and the sitter can't take it because I haven't interpreted it right. So I want to talk about evidence, because that's such an important part of mediumship, because ultimately it's all about the evidence, isn't it? That's what people need to know, that they've definitely got, who you say you've got. So can you talk to us about, your experience and advice when it comes to, trying to make sure that you can give the sitter the best evidence possible?
There's a couple of things that come to mind. All right. You got to sit with spirit, because what happens if you're they're here and you're here, like the evidence is transported in some way. It's about setting the intention and about the power. Now, I was given a great bit of advice: sit in the power, do short bursts 3 times a day if you've got a big demonstration coming up, or sort of like short bursts where you just amplify the power really quickly and connect, so you get used to it. It's like you wear that as like a coat. It becomes a cloak, and you think at the spirit world here. And it's like you keep that engagement. All right. So when you connect with spirit and you sit with spirit, what you're doing is this: you're refining the blend. And the closer the connection, the stronger the information will be. You've got to put the time in. All right. If you don't put the time in, it's going to take you longer to get there.
Yeah, it's very true.
There are other things that influence it as well. Like, I know that when my mum passed away, that my mediumship had another dynamic to it. Okay. Because the more we have in terms of challenge and the more trauma and upset that we experience, the greater our sensitivity becomes. All right. And the more sensitive we become, the more connected, like almost like instantly you can feel the connection with spirit. That's my understanding. All right. But also through working with it, understanding your habits, because I think sometimes we can get into a pattern of behavior that as we start to connect, we say, all right, well, they look like this, this, and this. Now, sometimes, in fact, quite a few times, I don't give the relationship. Because if I focus too much on trying to find out whether Fred is dad or uncle or granddad or brother or son, I am taking my focus away from the power that I feel within me, the connection with spirit. I'm taking myself out of that power. So what I need to do is to allow the natural flow to happen. All right. So literally, you open your mouth, Jason. You literally start talking. I do not know. I can be sat waiting to demonstrate, and I will not know who I've got, man, woman, or child. Will not know. I'll stand up and I still won't know. I start to talk and maybe move about, and I start to get an image that is a split second, and I go. All right. So, and then I say, I've got a lady. I do not know who she looks like, but I work purely on the feeling, because everything that we receive from spirit is felt. Okay. The images we get are impressed upon the auric field and driven through the psychic faculty. That's how you see. You hear, usually, it's a feeling in the center of the mind, in the center of the brain, and it feels like a softness that implodes or explodes, but it's soft. Or we may feel in our solar plexus, because that's the area that we're probably most receptive at that time. Does this make sense?
Make sense. It makes total sense.
Yeah. So what happens is that to allow the flow, it's that 4-letter F word, flow. Okay. So and the flow comes as you start to speak, the more natural your energy is, the more relaxed you are, the greater connection you'll have with spirit, because they can just join. We don't have to make any adjustments here because Jason is in his zone.
You know, the funny thing about it is that first ever time I went to the college, it just sums it all up, because I just literally went with the way I felt and didn't even think about it. It was just what I felt. And it's the ego that has got in my way since then, that I need to do this, I need to do that. But I'm starting to realize now, Jason, just go with the way you feel. You know how you feel. And actually, I was so proud of myself. I did a reading the other day, and I didn't even let my mind get in the way. And it did. It was the flow. Just like you're saying, it was that flow. And it just came out and it was all right. And I thought, oh my God, you know, I'm starting to really understand this now.
When you just listened to yourself back then, you said, oh, I didn't even think about it. Now that's the key.
Yeah.
You think about it, then your logic mind kicks in and you're not with spirit, you're in your own mind. So you've lost that connection. So it's all about being in the mind to mind. And the one thing I say now is me, you, and the joy. That's what I say to the spirit team. Me, you, and the joy. Come on, let's do this.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Penny, it's been the most wonderful conversation with you. I feel like we could go for another hour. Would you like to would you like to close the episode for us today with a final thought or a pearl of wisdom to leave us on?
I would probably say, I was reminded this of the other day that Gordon Higginson had said that you don't have to like everybody, but you can love everybody.
I love that.
That resonated with me so much. And through spiritualizing, through understanding who we are, regardless of being a medium, a healer, or, a trance medium, regardless of all of that, be human, be yourself, be in this moment, be in this world, and just absolutely be thankful for the small blessings. Because even though we go through trauma and challenge, this world was supposed to be, being in this world is supposed to be an experience. Nobody said it was going to be a good one, and I truly believe that we are faced with challenges every day. And the more we have the rug pulled from underneath our feet, we become quite insular sometimes, but in the end, we'll need another. And it's in those times where we need another, that being spiritual, being spiritualizing of self, it will be easy to open the door and say, come in, sit down, let's talk, because we've lost that in life. And that's one thing that you never know. That word, that last sentence you say to somebody in that moment of upset and argument can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. That can cause that person to do harm to themselves or to another.
Yeah.
It's about being mindful, because for every conversation we have with one another, there's an energetic exchange that is so strong that it shifts the cell structure, and that person is never the same ever again. And that's really important, because that means that when we share love and compassion, that we're moving and shifting things in such a great way.
I think that was absolutely beautiful. And I agree with every word. Well, Penny, lastly, I just want to say congratulations as well, because you've just become a tutor at the Arthur Findlay College. You must be delighted. What an achievement.
I am. And when you just said that, it just made me feel so proud, and so, I don't know, it just made me reflect. And it was only early June. It's been a long road and a difficult one, like most people, with challenge, but also with joy. But it has strengthened my faith in myself and others. And I just feel so blessed. And
so it bloody should do.
Yeah, I just feel so blessed. I really do. And I'm off to the college tomorrow for a week, so I can't wait. I'm so excited. So, there'll be some new students to sort of like get my hands on.
Well, if you want to see Penny, go and find out, check out her courses, the courses that she's on. Penny, that just leaves me to say thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure everyone has as well. And it's, the passion, I can feel it through the camera and through the screen for the spirit world. In fact, so thank you so much for coming on, especially when you've got such a busy day ahead of you tomorrow.
It's okay. And thank you for the opportunity. You never know how these things are going to be like, but it can only ever be good content. And thank you.
Indeed. Oh, thank you.